千里之行，始于足下。A journey of 1,000 miles begins beneath the feet. We now gather in the Tao to travel the journey together. Welcome to Tao Talks with Derek Lin, where we take a deep dive into the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu. I would like to extend a warm welcome to you. Thank you for joining us. I would like to invite you to center your thoughts and direct your attention to this moment in time, to the here and now, to be fully present and mindfully aware as we all ready ourselves for this sacred process in the Tao with one another. So now, without further ado, let us continue with Tao Te Ching 28. Previously, we talked about the title of this chapter being Eternal Virtue. It is the primary concept of this chapter, and Lao Tzu explained it in three different ways. Each one starting with the yin and yang symbol, and he expressed a specific approach to know the yang principle, but hold to the yin principle. Mastering all three ways leads us to the perfection of the eternal virtue. Here's how the chapter looks. And of course, we did our usual sectional analysis to see the structure of this chapter. So with this breakdown, you can easily see the three sections, all following the same format, all leading to the eternal virtue and returning to the Tao. In our last two meetings, we covered all three and reached line 17. So today, we will get right back to that right after a quick recap. So in the last Sunday's discussion, we went through the third section following the first two. It starts out with no honor, hold to the humility. So we noted this was also a variation on know the yang, hold the yin, which is the overall theme. This leads to the embodying metaphor of the valley. The valley is a recurring image in Tao teachings. Not as well known to the general public, but it is something that's repeated several times throughout the Tao Te Ching. So the valley, it knows the highest peaks of the mountains that surround it, but it holds to the river that flows through the lowest part in the center of the valley. So the highest peaks represent the honor, the high honors that one can attain in life. But the lowest part in the center of the valley where the river flows, that represents humility. I think this makes the metaphor instantly and abundantly clear. The third section ends on this particular note, returning to Pu, the plain piece of wood representing the ultimate simplicity of you. When I say the ultimate simplicity of you, I mean literally the you that is who you truly are. I don't mean your name, nor your appearance, your physical self, nor the extra layers on top of your essential soul, the layers that you need to live in this world. I don't mean any of that. When I say the pool principle, the plain piece of wood representing the utmost primal nature, I mean it's just you. You and nothing else. You at your purest. This is where we ended our discussion last time. It is the fourth section of Tao Te Ching 28. Here, Lao Tzu goes from plain wood, transitions to plain wood in life, representing the raw material that we use, and extending from that, talking about working with one another as resources in life. So I say that it pulls together the previous three sections because of simple questions that we can ask. For instance, how can we draw good people to us? Section 1, by being the watercourse that receives from multiple streams. And once we have the people together, how can we unify everyone? Section 2, by setting a standard and serving as an example for all. Then another important question for group dynamics. How can we accommodate all the different personalities within the group? Section 3, by being the valley, by being open and receptive and welcoming to everybody. So this is how the sage brings people together for a common goal, a unified purpose. So looking at this line 17, we can see only 2 lines remain to the end of this chapter. So let's continue. Line 18, it says, and then become leaders. Following the sentence, the sages utilize them. So the sages become leaders. This is a reference to the concept that leadership arises naturally when one lives in accordance with the Tao. Ancient legends spoke of mythical kings and emperors who were accomplished sages themselves. They used the Tao to lead their kingdom or empires of antiquity. If we were to apply that to our modern lives, this leadership may not be formalized, but it can be seen in the form of people following a positive example that you have set, or find themselves influenced by you in a positive way. You may not think of yourself as the leader type. Some people say that. They say, oh, not me, I'm not the leader type. And to them, I would say, just by existing, you cannot help but have some kind of influence over other people, whether positive or negative. So you don't have to be a CEO or a manager or supervisor Whenever you find yourself in the role of a parent, a teacher, a mentor, or a guide, everything we're talking about applies. When I say teacher, I don't mean in the formal sense that you are employed as a teacher at a school. What I mean is, in everyday life, we find ourselves in the role of a teacher and student, perhaps multiple times per day. So informally, even without a title, you may be teaching something to someone who needs to learn from you. So that is the general kind of leadership we're really referring to. Not a title, but something that you have to do and be from time to time. So leadership, in this sense, is not to command, but to bring the best out in people. This is what it means to be a Tao-centric leader, inspiring others to do more than they thought they could. So this is done through facilitation, bringing the best out of people, not by trying to control them, but to utilize the tools, by that I mean the specialized skills that people bring to the table. You create a vision, then in facilitation, you step back and you trust that they can execute the vision. And what happens in such a group or a team or a family? Well, the members of a team or family or group, those who contribute meaningfully, they know it and they feel a sense of great satisfaction. The Tao-centric leader, perhaps the parent, perhaps the teacher, he or she has created a conducive environment for that contribution to take place. So that ensures that the team, everyone in it, can feel the satisfaction of their own accomplishments. Wise parents use this Tao-centric leadership to keep the family close. I would even say parenting is a good way to show that true authority and leadership are not seized or demanded. They arise effortlessly and naturally. They just happen. And in the case of parenting, when it happens, you cannot avoid or sidestep the responsibility. In this sense, the leader is the one who emerges naturally and, as a parent, for instance, has to lead by example. Now we are at the last line. It says, thus, the greater whole is undivided. So this requires some explanation. When we say the greater whole and being undivided, this is another way to frame that we are less powerful and effective when we are divided. So when we are undivided, we're far more powerful and far more effective. Our common saying is things like, united we stand, divided we fall. And sometimes from the other perspective, we say, divide and conquer. So you can see that this concept is baked in to our language. Sages unite the power of all toward the common goal for the greater whole. The goal of the sages is to provide service, something positive to humanity as a whole. So these are the people who have no particular desire to chase after personal benefits. They keep their eyes on the goal that is bigger than any one individual, not selfish gains, which to them will be a misuse of the Tao. Now, as a side effect of them following the Tao, they'll be rewarded regardless with plenitude, with abundance, with prosperity. But that was never the main goal. So the effort is undivided, and therefore the outcome would also be undivided. There's oneness and unity in the effort as well as the outcome. We take a look at all these and we can apply these ideas to our lives. It means if we think of ourselves, all the different parts of you as members of a team, and you unite them, unite all the different parts into a unified goal, then spiritual cultivation should be a complete, committed effort. And just as the group is more powerful when it is united, we too become spiritually powerful when we move mindfully toward one goal. This is about letting go of distractions that can get in the way of your own spiritual cultivational work. That's not about being selfish, letting go of distractions, but about strengthening you in order so that you can be in a position to help other people. Now, we have arrived at the end of Tao Te Ching 28. The one thing at this point I want to emphasize is that there is a flow in the thinking of Lao Tzu from the beginning of this chapter to the end. Let me show you what I mean by that. We begin with the yin and yang principles at the start of this chapter. We have seen that Lao Tzu talks about it in 3 parts. So we begin with this symbol for the Tao, the yin and yang. The first part that Lao Tzu talked about was know the masculine, hold to the feminine. And in the bullets below, you'll see that means know how to be forward, how to advance, but choose to be observant, considerate, and patient. You can frame this in a number of different ways. You should know how to push, how to take control of a situation, how to speak your mind. These are ways to manifest the yang or masculine energy, which everybody has. But then what you choose is not that. You choose to gently guide a situation toward a better outcome for everybody. You choose to listen and ask clarifying questions in order to understand. That's holding to the yin. In the same way, we go to the second section where Lao Tzu says, know the white, hold to the black. Meaning, know the highly visible appearance and approach, that's the white, but choose to hold the unseen substance, of course, strength. That's the black. We can extend from this to understand and apply that this means to know, to understand how to be visible, how to be seen, how to project, how to present. But then at the same time, what you choose is not that. You choose to hold to the aspects people do not see, the aspects that are not visible or noticeable, like the work that goes on behind the scenes, the foundation that you build, not the soaring towers on top of it, but the basis that you have built at the bottom to hold it all up. This is the real value, literally underneath it all. Then, going further with the yin and yang, we move to know the honor, hold to the humility, the third section. And remember, the meaning is to know the height of great honor, but choose the depth of humility. Know how to succeed, how to attain the highest honors, but choose the low instead of the high. Choose to be down to earth instead of high and mighty, putting on airs. So all these together, I think you can see them as a unified whole. It is the same idea expressed in three different ways. Then we get to the part where Lao Tzu uses metaphors, three metaphors specifically, that one would embody by knowing the yang, but holding to the yin. First, we have be the watercourse of the world. To be the watercourse is to be a nexus where the flow of human interactions come together. So, as I mentioned previously, this is utilizing observation of nature, noting that there's always a place where multiple streams flow together to form a larger stream. That's the watercourse. Then, Lao Tzu says, you can embody the next metaphor, be the standard of the world. To be the standard is to teach by setting an example and not by telling people what to do. And the image that I've chosen for that is a flag. And the word standard can mean the flag or a banner. It's a rallying point for others. So this is the unifying thing that people will gravitate to. By setting a positive example, you get everybody on the same track. Then, the third embodying of the metaphor is the valley, be the valley of the world. This means to welcome all within your circle, accepting diverse opinions and perspectives. And here we have the fertile valley. The abundance of the valley is a direct result of you being accepting and welcoming. So beyond the yin and yang, beyond the metaphors, there's just the eternal virtue. So ultimately, everything that we have discussed, if we embody all these examples, if we become the watercourse, the standard, the valley, it all moves you toward the eternal virtue. The first one, the first aspect of the eternal virtue is that the eternal virtue does not depart. You cannot lose your virtues because they have become a part of you. The virtues are not what you do, but who you are as a person. At this level, you're not just somebody who has the Tao, but you and the Tao are one. That is the realm we're talking about. Then, the second aspect of the eternal virtue is that the eternal virtue does not deviate. So the Tao is constant, it is eternal. The eternal virtue deriving from the Tao, sourced in the Tao, will be the same. It will never change. It will always be constant. It is eternal as well. Applied to you as a person, this means your discipline ensures you never deviate from the path. No deviation also means there are no loopholes, exceptions, shortcuts, or compromises in the Tao. And number 3, the eternal virtue shall be sufficient. Your self-nature creates all the dharmas in your life. This is a Zen way of talking about the same thing. Self-nature is your true essence, who you really are. The dharmas is everything, all the manifestations of your life. Then the realization is that you have been self-sufficient all along. So if that is the Zen expression of this concept, what is the Tao way of saying it? Well, it goes like this. The great Tao is the source of all things in creation. Whatever the source is, the name, the label that we give to it is the Tao. Next, the Tao is in you because you come from the Tao. That Tao within is the source of everything in your life because the Tao creates everything. So that means you already possess everything you need to transcend all of your challenges. You have everything you need, all the solutions to solve all of your problems. So here's the thing, everybody. You never really needed gurus or deities at all. Friends and fellow cultivators can point things out for your attention, but at the end of the day, it's all up to you. So we began this mini segment with the symbol of the yin and yang representing the Tao. Now we're going to end the segment with the Tao as well. It is now time to pull everything together to illustrate all the concepts in this chapter with one graphic. Why? Because a picture is worth 1,000 words. So we're going to incorporate everything that we have learned so far, starting with know the yang in terms of knowing the masculine energy, positive, moving, advancing, action-driven, dynamic. While knowing the masculine, hold to the feminine, the receptive, the quiet, the tranquil, the peaceful. This leads us, if we're able to do that, then it leads us to embody the water course metaphor, the place that effortlessly attracts good people and good things into your life. As I mentioned previously, people talk about the law of attraction. Here, Lao Tzu is telling us the way to make it work is exactly this. Know the yang, hold to the yin. And here is the image of the watercourse. And this is the return to the infant. The infant representing our primal state before we became tainted by growing up in this material world. We all began our lives this way. This means the eternal virtue does not depart. That is, we cultivate, we practice the virtue so that they become an eternal, constant part of us. So that is the first column. This is the row that is human-oriented. It is a focus on humanity. So we have male and female on the left, infant on the right. When we see that, and then we have the watercourse metaphor in the middle, this is how we can tell the metaphor of the watercourse, it applies to humanity, to human interactions. Water flowing together is symbolic of socialization, social interactions. This is built in to human languages, not just ancient Chinese, but modern English as well. Think about how we talk about going to a social mixer. So the word mixer appended to social is another way to talk about the watercourse. And in a party, in the mixer, in a gathering, we talk about let's go mingle with people. So that is also very similar to water mixing together, flowing together. That's the first row. For the second row, we begin with the white. And you recall that this means the highly visible. Then we continue on with the black. And this is the complementary opposite, the unseen, the unnoticed, the thing that people generally don't pay attention to. Then the metaphor to embody the standard for which I use a flag. When you are able to know the visible, but focus on the unseen, you embody the standard or the example for others. This is because you literally become a person of substance, a person who emphasizes the internal over the external appearance. So this is a return to the boundless. And this is the symbol for wuji, which is the state of being before there was anything. So we use a circle to represent that. In terms of the eternal virtue, it does not deviate. It never changes. It is eternally constant. So this row, as you can see, it works on a symbolic level. The white and black are just another way to represent the complementary dualities in general. It is not necessarily success or failure. They both have their place. So now let's go to the third row. We begin with the honor. I use the mountain peaks to represent that. And we proceed to the humility represented by water. water flows to the lowest point. So it is the natural metaphor for humility. Then the embodiment for this is the valley. Here we have the fertile valley. This is a return to the plain wood, the pool, which then leads us to eternal virtue that is self-sufficient. So notice that in this row, it is just nature-based images. In the first row, we have humanity. In the second row, we have the symbolic, the Tao, the yin and yang. Here, we have nature-based images all in a row because nature is self-sufficient. Nature provides everything that is needed by the myriad things. So we want to embody and be reflective of this principle. And indeed, that greater nature, the great outdoors, nature itself, it's reflected in our internal nature, in human nature as well. What I mean is, we come into this world with self-sufficiency. As we are born into this world, we don't have anything, but we are naturally gifted with a mind that is capable of understanding the Tao, capable of self-awareness, and that awareness motivates us to be better and do better. So everything here, if we were to look at the image vertically, in the first column, we have manifestations of the Yang principle. Vertically on the second column, we have manifestations of the Yin principle. The third column, we have the manifestations of the embodiment. Then we have returning to different ways to represent us at our most primal, at our most spiritually powerful. So these are the three approaches that Lao Tzu describes, as I mentioned, consolidated into one image. But what about the conclusion? The fourth section, the last section that we study today. Well, that's coming up right now. This is the final and most important question of this chapter: how to tie everything together in order to apply the Tao to life. So we've got three columns here. The first column to the left, embodying the metaphors. You can see the images to the left of the first column, reminding us what those metaphors are. In the middle, we have a column for how the sages bring people together. So this is from toward the end of the chapter that says the sages utilize them and then become leaders, leading a group effort. Then on the rightmost side, we have a column about the outcome. And they connect the last section to all three sections. This is how it all maps to group dynamics. Living with your loved ones and working with everybody you come across. So let's run through the metaphors. By now, we're very familiar as to what they are. The first one is simply the watercourse. The place where multiple streams join together to become a greater stream. How can we see that when we apply it to the group? Well, the different streams represent individuals. Flowing together represents coming together, joining forces to team up. We become greater when we flow together. We become a group, a team, or family. And what about the rightmost column? How would this apply to group dynamics? So your eternal virtue remains as a part of you, eternally constant, when you connect with others. And it is what powers your ability to know the yang and hold to the yin. That is a benefit, that is a result of your eternal virtue. Now let's move to the standard, represented here by a flag. It's just an example that has been set up like a flag that rallies the troops on a battlefield. A highly visible rallying point. How would that be applied to a group setting? The example to follow is a unifying point, like that flag. For all of us, as if, we are the soldiers in the battlefield of life. We look to the rallying point as a guide, as the place that we're heading to. And how this applies to eternal virtue, we're following the same Tao, we're rallying to the same place, so our eternal virtue will not deviate, meaning they are unified, they are the same. Lastly, we have the image of the valley. The myriad things flourish in the valley, living in harmonious balance. So can we also set that in terms of group dynamics? So in terms of the group, we have a range of diverse talents within the group, and they complement each other. This is an extension of the metaphor where the myriad things live within the ecology of the valley, the environment, and they live in harmony. Every living thing occupies a niche in this ecology in perfect balance. And putting this together for eternal virtue, it just means your eternal virtue shall be more than sufficient to accommodate everyone you encounter. This is the generosity, the providing of the valley. So, as the last note in our presentation, I'll quote the last lines from Lao Tzu. The sages utilize them and then become leaders. Thus, the greater whole is undivided. So now you can see this is about forging the team, the family, the group. One where everything and everyone is harmonious. So we are now at the exact halfway point of our meeting today. The time is 11:15. We should now be taking a 5-minute break. Let us come back and resume at 11:20. I'll leave this slide up right here. Let's go ahead and take 5. Okay, everyone. It is now 11:20 a.m., so time for us to continue. We have completed our discussion of Dao De Jing 28. It is now time for the paraphrase. And our purpose is to express the original meaning with modern language. So this is not a translation, but it should be an easy way to understand what Lao Tzu was trying to convey. We start with the first section. It is about the watercourse. There it is again. Here is a paraphrase I would like to offer. The key in cultivating the Tao is to know the Yang principle while holding on to the Yin principle. When you balance the two, you become a central nexus of human interactions in society, attracting positive energy and good people to you. The virtues you practice become a natural part of you as you return to your original state of purity and maximum potential. So now, moving on to the second section about to embody the standard. And here's the paraphrase I would like to offer for that. Similarly, you should know the external, highly visible approach to success, Yang, while holding on to the internal lessons extracted from past experience, Yin. When you are able to do this, you become an example for others to emulate. The virtues you practice do not deviate from the Tao as you return to the primal state of ultimate power. So here we see a different way to express the same concepts that Lao Tzu has written. Now, going on to the third section, and here we are with the valley once again. Here's the paraphrase. Cultivating the Tao this way will naturally bring about excellence and achievements, but as you receive recognition for your work, you must also hold on to the practice of humility. When you are able to do this, you become like the valley that is open and nurturing to all. You feel a sense of contentment as you return to the simplicity of plain wood. And finally, we arrive at the fourth and final section. Here's the paraphrase for the conclusion. In understanding the above, the sages see everyone as a unique facet of an overall spiritual power that can be brought together for harmonious utilization. This is the Tao of leadership, bringing out the best from each individual so we can all contribute and help one another and continue down the path together. So that is the paraphrase for 28. So then the last thing to talk about for the chapter is the full circle. This is where we link together the last part of the chapter to the beginning. In the last lines of Dao De Jing 28, Lao Tzu talks about bring everyone together as a group that is far greater than the sum of its parts. We link this back to the beginning, and we see reference to yin and yang and the necessity to wield both. So the message is clear. When we collaborate in harmony, our individual skill sets may be directed externally, that's yang, or internally, that's yin. So the same is true for us. We have to bring the external and internal aspects together so we can integrate them in harmony and master the life journey. Looking at this, we can apply the same idea to all kinds of different settings because the Tao principle is something that permeates reality. If we were to look at the modern world and the typical corporation or company, there's always the marketing, the sales, and public relations. Those will be external, the yang. But then there's also R&D, research and development, HR, human resources, engineering, and production. All of those will be internal, yin. How well this organization or company does will depend on the extent of its mastery of both yin and yang. So, reflecting on us, every single one of us have aspects that are outwardly directed. Social skills, our interactions, our reputation, how people see us, all of those are external. We also have internal aspects that are not seen but manifest in our thoughts, our plans, our ideas, contemplations about life. How well we travel through life will also depend on our mastery of the yin and yang energies, the internal and the external. So I want to reiterate this quote from Lao Tzu. Plain wood splits, then become tools. The sages utilize them. This concludes our discussion of Tao Te Ching 28. We have two summaries. Summary part 1 covers the first half, which is the first two ways of talking about this topic. And everyone, I think, recalls that this is about knowing the yang, holding to the yin, and the yang representing male and also the highly visible, and the yin representing the female, the serene, the unseen. The third section is also the same format, the honored, the highly praised is a representation or manifestation of yang energy. The humble is the yin manifestation. So this is what we talked about last time. And today we talked about utilizing the simplicity. And I say that because in previous sections, we all return to the primal, like the infant, the plain piece of wood, the wuji. This is the simplicity and purity that we all return to. And applying that to the group setting, from a unity of purpose, functions can be delegated, and this refers back to the line where it says plain wood splits apart. Emulate the sages. So Even for those people who say, I am not the leader type, well, you have to be the leader in your life. You have to be the person who takes control. Therefore, you are at the forefront. You manage your life in the same way that the sages would manage a group effort, would lead a group effort. So this is how we progress together as a group. Individually, it is how we progress spiritually. Share the Tao. For easy access to Tao resources, visit my website, dereklin.com. There, you can click on links and see everything listed, such as Taoism.net, information about the Tao and this meeting, our Facebook community, a place to discuss the Tao with fellow seekers, our YouTube channel, recordings of all our previous meetings, my Amazon author page, books and audiobooks for further exploration. You can go directly to this page at dereklin.com/links. When you see the benefits of the Tao in your life, share your experience through comments on Facebook and share these resources with friends who may also benefit. If you find my books or audiobooks to be helpful, please post your reviews on Amazon to guide others to the Tao. If you have connections to prisoners interested in the Tao, please contact me through Derek Lin Books on Facebook, and I will send my books to them free of charge. This is the path that I am on, so I can say sharing the Tao has transformed my life in incredible ways. I would like to invite you to come along. Let us travel together on the path in the journey of life. Our meeting has come to an end, but the journey continues on. Until next time, may the Tao fill you with peace and happiness.